Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cut and Splice. This is Jason, and I'm here with Matt and Gil again, as usual. And
Hey,
tonight we're going to be talking about when was this movie made? We're going to be talking about the movie
1998.
Savior. Yeah, sorry. We're going to be talking about the movie Savior. It's a Dennis Quaid movie from 1998. And yeah, I was the one who suggested this one for a number of reasons, but mostly because I just felt like it was. I think my last movie was movie 43 or whatever that thing was. So I thought we should go something with a little more substance. So
yeah, some counter programming.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Andrew will be confused.
That's our goal after all. No,
Yeah, for sure.
this is just briefly. This is a like I said, a movie made in '98. It is more or less about one of the several wars that took place in Yugoslavia, or what used to be Yugoslavia, the Yugoslav Wars, in the early '90s. I'm pretty sure this one takes place in '93, and it is basically about an American going over there and fighting with a foreign legion, and a lot of stuff happens. And that's the movie.
And strangely, the I had a similar problem to Funny Games of all movies. Is like I for some reason I had like a tennis player's thing stuck in my head for half this
Oh, no.
movie because because when every time Goran, that character that's like in
Yeah.
the first not the first half but like
Pretty heavy in
like
the first half, yeah.
yeah. So the his accent, I was like, oh my god, that's like how Djokovic talks. It's like exactly like. So I'm assuming it's an authentic Serbian accent based on that.
Probably.
But like all I could hear is like Djokovic interviews basically the entire time he talks. It was Pete Sampras
Hopefully.
with Funny Games, but no.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, with
Um,
the skinnier of the two psychotic killers.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah. So did both of you watch this movie before, or Matt? Did you see this before?
This was my first time.
Okay.
It's hard to really articulate my overarching opinion on it. I mean, it's honestly, there. It took me a while to understand that the. Okay, this was weird. I was watching the movie and I was really under the impression that the beginning of the movie was like a flash forward, and I was watching a movie that was like leading up to why this guy was doing what he was doing up until like 30 minutes into it, and I realized like, oh, okay, that's yeah, no, this is being done chronologically. So yeah.
Yeah, that's but that's interesting.
Yeah,
Like, I would like to be in your shoes when you're watching a different movie there for a while.
Yeah, but how it's it turned out to be a lot stronger in a lot of ways than I was expecting going in. I mean, it's Dennis Quaid as the lead. I mean, how many times is that going to work out well? And
I was gonna say that was like one thing I was gonna go over is Dennis Quaid's enigmatic career.
yeah, but I mean, he was pretty strong, and I mean the movie did kind of look like a Lifetime original movie, just cinematographically and everything, which was a little bit of a problem. But
There are moments it looks kind of cheap.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, with a war movie, when the violence happens, it's kind of important that it kind of hits you in your mental gut when it's happening, and you're watching innocent people and so on and so forth. And uh, just so much of that was not handled well, just from a filmmaking standpoint. But story wise, I think that there's some there.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, mostly it's the whole complex story around it, like the whole Yugoslavian wars and stuff. Is I started reading up on it after the movie, just to try and have some, not necessarily do research, but just because I knew so little about it that it interested me. Because I feel
That's
like
pretty
just
much my reaction as well. When I remember when I first saw it, I also spent a good 20 minutes looking stuff up on Wikipedia.
yeah, because like in the 90s when it was happening, I was pretty young, and we've had enough issues in Israel to have to worry about like what was going on in Europe.
Yeah,
but
no shit.
so it's like the world was just a bit of a mess in the mid 90s, like between all the stuff going on. But this movie, it's interesting. Also, is like presented by Oliver Stone, which kind of makes sense. But it seems like it's like a Serbian filmmaker, I think, the director.
Yeah, the director is Serbian. I was just reading right now. It says that he was actually the actual director was a political prisoner during the actual events that the movie is showing. What's depicted on the film.
Yeah, no, I mean the it's definitely well intended, and it's definitely very interesting. The crux of it, which we can get into with spoilers and everything, like the premise and some of the plot lines are just a bit, yeah, but just too much, like just too much. Like I don't know how it could have been fixed, but it was just like a bit like just ridiculous almost at times. But it was very well intentioned. So it's one of those movies where like you're glad you saw it just for the historical aspect of it. But I almost feel like my time would have been better spent to watch an hour and a half documentary about like the war. So that would be my recommendation, is like maybe skip the movie, seek out a documentary about what was going on, then to like, I think you might get more entertainment and more information too about what was going on. But for what it was definitely interesting. Like I don't know what I would rate it. Probably like a 5 or a 6. Like I want to give it a 6, just because of the the fact that it was trying to like tell this story that's pretty recent. It was only a few years after that they were doing this movie, to just show how ridiculous like human nature is, and different groups of people, and how we like fall into tribes, and it's just really ridiculous.
I remember seeing this movie back maybe 10 years ago or something like that, I think. Maybe a little less than that. But this was one of those ones where I had seen the cover of this DVD in all the way back to like Blockbuster rental days. I'd like seen it on shelves. Because you get to that point where none of the new releases are jumping out at you, and you're like, let's go walk through the other aisles and see if there's something I've never seen, or see if there's something I want to rewatch. And I remember several times, or many times, seeing this image on the DVD cover, and it was always kind of caught my attention. It's the cover is Dennis Quaid, and he's wearing a beret and I think some of the covers had had him like with the rifle on his back or something like that. And I just remember thinking like, okay, well, what the heck is this? Like, it's clearly Dennis Quaid. I'm a fan of Dennis Quaid. I like him a lot. And it was just sort of like something I never watched. I had never even heard anyone ever talk about it, like ever. I'd never seen a trailer for it. No one I knew had ever seen it. And then one day, I think I just saw it on cable or something, or maybe it was streaming somewhere, and I watched it like 10 years ago or something. I really don't remember. But I just remember seeing this movie finally, and it being completely different than what I expected. And not always in a good way. Some of it, it was a lot slower than I expected it to be, and a lot less action than I expected, considering the movie cover, the movie poster. But right off the bat, I was intrigued by the story, and then it kind of turns into like a road trippy sort of movie without getting into details. And I didn't love every bit of it, but by the end, I felt like it kind of stuck the landing. And I was just sort of like, all right, well, it was better than I expected, considering I've never heard anyone, ever talk about it before. And on this podcast, we're always trying to introduce each other to stuff that we've never seen before. So I thought, this would be a good one to go ahead and do. If I had to rate this movie, like I said, it exceeded my expectations for what I had thought going into it, but I do think it has its issues. I'd probably just give it like a 7. I mean, I could go with like a 6, but there's a few elements of it that I really like. Particularly, well, we'll get into that later, but yeah, I mean, it has some stuff in there I liked a lot, and so that's probably where I'd put it. Would be right around like a 7.
Okay, so since I've been saying that we should be reviewing Before the Rain for like more than a year, and that movie is about the same basic conflict, just slightly northwest of, like, I mean, really slightly northwest of the same location as this movie, and we still haven't done that. I'm going to give this a 1. No, but
Out of spite?
No, I don't. It's such a complex conflict, and it's kind of sad that so many conflicts around the world have been handled with so much more grace and, well, I mean, maybe not grace, but in some cases grace, in some cases grit, but also like more name recognition and talent has been thrown at depicting different conflicts around, the 1990s. But I mean, it's hard to really find that many people around these United States nowadays who even know that these conflicts even happened, or could speak intelligently about them for 2 seconds, and much less anybody who cares about them. And for that, I'm going to give it a bump. From a strict filmmaking standpoint, again, I don't think that it was very strong. I think that Dennis Quaid was pretty strong. I think that the lead actress, whose name escapes me, was
Natasha Ninkovic, I think.
Yeah. I mean, she was strong, but not. There were a lot of problems with the script, and trying to make her as sympathetic as she could be. So yeah, I'm probably in like the 6.5 territory. So
I assume that you guys are like me, and none of us have seen any of the other movies that this Serbian filmmaker have made.
correct.
No, but
Correct.
I was curious to see like out of Dennis Quaid's career, like what's been my favorite performances of his.
Ever?
Yeah, and I think
my go-to is Inner Space. I love that movie.
Yeah, Inner Space for sure. You know, I'm thinking I should like. I wonder what's the rating on that movie. If I should show it to the kids soon.
It's got some sex in it, I think.
Oh yeah, never mind. Yeah, I think Inner Space and there's also
Movie 43. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, there was another one. Well, I was looking at his like thing, and I mean White Earp, but not as great. I like Dragonheart. I don't mind that movie. I didn't rate it.
It's got some serious problems, but it's also like a one that's very easy to be nostalgic about.
Yeah, for the time. Yeah. But yeah,
he's good in Great Balls of Fire.
Yeah, that's true. That's pretty memorable performance.
If you guys have never seen Undercover Blues, we should do an episode on that. That one's fun.
Yeah, you know, I still got to say I really liked Frequency.
Which one?
Frequency.
Oh, Frequency is great. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever see
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you guys ever see the one that he did right before this movie, Switchback?
Oh, Switchback. No.
I'm a fan of it. I like it. It's got Danny Glover and it's got Jared Leto. It's pretty cool.
The one I saw at some point that I liked was his earlier one, Breaking Away.
Oh, that's the one where he's
it's like a cycling team.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
Yeah,
I saw another movie called Breaking Away that's far worse than that.
I see.
Yeah, Frequency, Traffic, The Parent Trap.
Yeah, it's with Jackie Earl Haley when he was younger.
Oh,
right. Yeah. It's you just brought up Traffic, and man, he wasn't like a major. He wasn't a major character in that movie, but that is definitely one of his best movies.
For sure.
No, yeah.
That was before Steven Soderbergh forgot how to make movies.
Indeed, very much so. I think he's very good in Flight of the Phoenix remake, but the movie is not good. Anyone who's interested in that should watch the original. It's far better, and it has a monkey in it.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I saw that movie is because Hugh Laurie was in it, right?
Yeah, he was. He was good in it too. It's just like it's like a movie that's like they should almost show those two movies in film school to kids to be like film students and be like, see why this first one works and see why this second one doesn't really work. There you go.
Yeah, I guess that's what remakes are good for.
Some of them.
Some of them.
Well, we've already had an episode on movies that you can't remake, right? So
that's true.
Yeah. The I guess so any other thoughts before we go into spoilers? I mean, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but one thing that really bothered me, I don't think it's revealing anything, but there's the nursery rhyme, whatever, the song that they sing.
She sings, yeah.
All I could hear when I was hearing that is like it's like alrighty then.
There was about a half a second there, Gil, where I was like, where are you going with this? And then you brought it home. That was so good.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long after like Ace Ventura 2 that this movie came out. So somebody should have made that
Oh,
connection and say, maybe we
damn.
should pick another song.
You know what? You know what? If YouTube was around in the mid 90s, someone would have made a side by side comparison, a joke about that.
Yeah.
It
Well,
might
it's
have even been a
crazy.
meme.
Like it came, I didn't know that when Nature Calls came out like a year after Pet Detective. That's like very quick.
That's surprising. Although
Yeah.
he was on fire at that time, so it kind of makes sense.
I thought that was like 96, 97, but yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And anywho, yeah, so spoilers.
Yeah. Spoilers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess you start if you haven't any.
Well, if you're
The
listening
mom
to us at
dies.
this point, yeah.
Okay.
Mom dies. Like just
If
in
you're-
case you didn't pause, you're fucked.
Yeah, if you're listening to this at this point, you should have already seen the movie. So yeah, the mom dies, his wife dies, the kids die, his best friend dies, everybody dies, really.
It's like
And-
it's like a
and- and every-
Shakespearean tragedy.
Right,
Pretty much.
and anybody who survives dies inside.
Oh, that's kind of right. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that bothers me the most is like the way the movie ends, like with the when he's like kind of giving up on life, which he already gave up in the beginning, so it's weird that he's giving up again in the end. Like when he's injured and like he puts the baby to be discovered by the Red Cross, and then the lady from the bus comes like, there's no reason for to abandon baby. I take you to the hospital. I was just like, I don't know why. That was just like it didn't like
Did
they
it
could have.
register with you at all?
No, I just think that like, and maybe this is the problem with the entire movie, is that a lot of these scenes, like they might have been written a certain way, and a more sensitive director would have said like, no, this doesn't work. Let's try another way and another way. And then eventually you would find the scene, like the way it works dramatically to not be ridiculous. And I feel like there's a lot of scenes throughout this movie, but obviously it's more pronounced in the end more than anything else. But there's like a lot of these little scenes where they're trying to make a point, and it's a good point, but it just it's basically like subpar execution. It's like it feels like they could have tried it 2-3 other ways, and maybe one of those would have worked better. Like it's almost like they shot the rehearsal.
I
And it's
think
like-
that's kind of fair. I was right before you said that. I was going to say that I like the ending and I like what it's trying to say, but I think you nailed it. That there is a problem with it, and the problem is probably execution, I guess, because I mean, on paper, the journey that he goes through is pretty substantial, and that ending is pretty meaningful. But yeah, there's something. I don't think there's something missing. There's something kind of wrong.
Speaking as somebody who has made the majority of his films as a cinematographer, in retrospect, this movie strikes me as the kind of movie that I would have my name on, in which the director came to me originally and said, "This is my passion project." And that is a really bad sign all the time, because like I feel like the director was probably so invested in the message of the story and his personal relationship to it that he probably was blinded to like the actual craft of making the movie. And also, by the way, I mean, most of the time when somebody comes to me and says this is my passion project, it's usually a white kid who grew up in like a trust fund kid or whatever, and has never lived life. But I mean, this person's been through some shit, but it just feels like one of those things where there's a little bit of a cringe element for me as more of a technical person coming into it, thinking like, okay, well, you probably have some really deep rooted passion for this, and that's probably why you're not the best person to tell the story. You need somebody to come in and just be like, all right, we need somebody who's looking at this from a third person point of view rather than a first person point of view. And I don't think that ever happened.
Yeah, you're saying this guy needed to be Four Leaf instead of Coogan.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think whoever, like, because Oliver Stone apparently was involved in this and stuff, and Dennis Quaid also in the same year appears in Any Given Sunday, so I guess there was like some connection there. But
and by the way, this is the best thing that Oliver Stone was ever involved in. So
okay,
damn.
But that aside,
don't mince words or nothing.
But I think
he made Platoon or anything like that.
I think it's all well intentioned, and yeah, maybe it was just like an experience of the director. Maybe it was like the scope of it and the fact that it was like it's like a joint production, sort of like an American produced like foreign film, but it's like done with like an American movie star. And I don't know, you never know if it was like a bit too much for him. Like maybe he mostly has done TV movies, and maybe he doesn't have the experience to like the subtlety of like big movies and epic. Like it's some people, it's just that jump is too big. Whatever the reason is, I don't think he needed to not be Serbian. I think that was actually the right call. But I just think something about like the whether it's like he's used to just shooting things really quick for efficiency's sake, so he just like sticks to the first or second take. Like maybe it was a rush production because of budget constraints, so they didn't have a lot of rehearsal time. But I really feel like they could have, like, this is where Kubrick would have been useful. Like, someone like Kubrick who just comes in and just does like 20, 30 takes. Eventually you find it, like you'll get there. But for whatever it is, like there's a few scenes here that just don't work super, super well. I mean, the thing where he suffocates the baby, that's weird too. That was like that just went too far. You can't suffocate a baby that easily. I mean, I'm sure you could if you put enough strength on it, but is he really that stupid? Like, he had like a death wish as it is.
Speaking from experience, or
yes, actually, because I've held 3 different babies, and believe me, they're like all up against my face, my chest, like when they're like on the baby carrier, and they don't suffocate that easily. But but yeah, no, I think there's a lot of things like that, like the scene in the beginning with Goran, and the scene in the tunnel and stuff. That one also like is sort of like so handled. Yeah. But the one aspect that I'll say
the staging could have been better on that.
Yeah, but the one thing I will say that was interesting about it is of all the movies that people like to claim that have owed this like credit to this movie, is like I feel like this movie owes a lot of credit like to The Searchers. Like it really felt like a Searchers vibe. The whole thing with like the daughter that gets deformed, or like what's the word, defiled by the by the others. And that family doesn't want anything to do with her, but then eventually they accept her. That part was my favorite part about the movie, is the fact that like, because The Searchers was a fictional movie, but this is actually like a real life situation. It wasn't based on a real story, but you can see how something like that could happen in that culture. Yeah. Like they were so tribal, they were so this, they were so that. That I like that aspect of it. Like if somebody did make the connection to The Searchers and was intentionally doing that as some sort of homage, that's the one thing I think they nailed in the movie.
That's what I was going to mention as one of my positives was I felt like that whole segment of the movie, when he brings her home to when the family tracks them down, that whole segment was one of I'm sure I've probably seen something in another movie that I'm just not thinking about, but it's definitely one of the only movies I've seen that really like delves into the whole like honor killing stuff. You know, I mean, like
Mhm.
she was a prisoner of the Muslims on the other side, and they return her. She's pregnant. She's about to pop, and then she has the baby, and her own family is thinking about killing her because of it. The people on her side are definitely thinking about killing her. The soldiers, Goran and the other soldiers, they don't see her as a human being anymore just because she, got pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the fact that they sold that they made it believable, that it didn't seem unbelievable, not the first time when they wanted to kill her, and not the second time when they eventually, second guessed it and didn't do it.
Yeah.
The fact that they pulled that off, it's one of the only things that makes the movie have any like strength.
Okay. Yeah, you went with strength. I went with weight.
Weight. Yeah,
that's
yeah. I mean, I feel like the story itself has weight, of course, but yeah, like the fact that like it holds up as a movie, like, oh wow, that's cinematic. That, like, to me, that was like cinematic. That was not a TV movie like sequence, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
I also like the just the story that Dennis Quaid goes through. In the beginning, he loses everything. He's got nothing left, so he just goes off to fight in the Foreign Legion. And then they have that whole segment where he's talking with his buddy. What's his name? Yeah,
Skarsgård.
Skarsgård.
I love Skarsgård. Yeah, I love all the Skarsgårds, actually. But they're talking, and obviously they've been at it for years now. And talk about a good friend, by the way. His buddy does something horrific, and they just he's like, let's leave the country together and let's just get out of here. But anyway, they join the Foreign Legion, and they've been fighting for a while, and they have that whole thing where he's like, neither of them are happy, neither of them want to be there, but they don't really have any other choice. They can't really go home. And he just said, he kind of tells him, like, it's not really that he's tired of the fighting or tired of the killing, because at this point he's killed many people. He's their Overwatch position, and he usually has a gun up on a hill somewhere, and he's shooting people from a distance, like a sniper. But he's not even tired of the fighting or the war or anything like that. He just says he's tired of fighting other people's wars, and he wants to fight for something that matters, something that he cares about, which of course makes Skarsgård laugh, and says, like, you just want to hate the people that you're killing, kind of thing. So I mean, he's like so jaded at that point, and then Skarsgård gets killed, and now he's got a whole reason to hate. Now he's got a whole new reason to be engaged in this conflict, even more than he ever did before. And so he really hates the other side. And then, of course, he meets the girl, and it starts changing his whole trajectory. And he starts realizing how horrible the people are that he's fighting with, and that he needs to, just changing all his perspective and everything like that. They go on the whole journey. It's 5 or 6 things that kind of change his views, of course. But like, I just like that, you mentioned the Searchers. I'd never thought about that connection at all. But, it's kind of nice because, like, by the end, when he first gets the girl, he's like, he doesn't want to do anything with this kid at all. He just wants it out of his life, and he doesn't want it to die. I mean, like, he's giving the base level of shit that he possibly can, as a human being, which is more than his partner, obviously. But that's all he's giving. He's just the base level of, like, I don't want this innocent child to die. That's it. I don't care about it at all, So, but then by the end, after all the stuff they go through, he's, he succeeds, and he, in his mind, gets the kid where he's been trying to get it the whole time. And only then is he like able to finally, die and stuff. But it's nice that at the very end he realized he gets a little bit of a redemption and suddenly has something to live for at the end. Like you said, Gil, maybe could have been that, definitely that one scene specifically could have been handled better for sure. But the story I think is pretty solid. His story arc and his story in general. It's just, in the hands of a more capable filmmaker, probably could have been really, really, really something.
Yeah. I did find it interesting that on IMDb, like it shows lists like that are related to the movie. I guess that the movie was as users put it in.
Like
and what? There's one that's like Islamophobia.
That's the name of it?
Yeah, like there's a list here, Islamophobia, with 33 titles.
Oh, and, the list, the name of the list, not the name
of the list. Yeah, because basically movies that have Muslims as the bad guys, they basically consider it as Islamophobia. I mean, I don't know.
That's a pretty basic take on this movie, because the the Muslims are only the bad guys for a very small portion of the movie. The rest of it's also,
yeah, it shows that the Serbs weren't exactly angels.
I think far from it. I mean,
yeah, no, for sure. Unlike
said,
Trump, there were bad people on all sides in this specific case.
I was going to say, like you said, I did a little dive into the history of the various Yugoslav wars that took place at that time, and I didn't know this, but I mean, I could be wrong here, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think given the dates and the stuff that they're talking about here, particularly the fact that they were against these the Muslim people there in Bosnia, I believe this is the Bosnian War between 1992 and 95, I think, is the conflict that it's talking about. Because there's like a whole bunch of little conflicts that took place during this time. At first, I thought it was the Croatian War of Independence, because that was also happening simultaneously. But I'm pretty sure this is the Bosnian War, because that's the one where they were talking about on Wikipedia here. It's saying that there was like there was like a genocide or something like that. The Serbs, they killed a whole bunch of Muslims or something like that at some point. And I was like, all right, that's got to be what this thing is referring to. It's right at that time that the movie takes place. It's all about the Serbs and the, I don't even know how to say this, Bosniaks. And yeah, anyway.
I mean, they mentioned the couple, which was another good scene. The couple that helps them, like
I like that scene a lot.
The woman was Croatian and the man was like Serb.
Yeah.
So like, the whole.
That was the other thing I was going to mention as a positive about this movie. That's one of my other favorite things about it, is that I would have given this movie an 8 if they had just really dived into this, but it wasn't that kind of a movie. It's like a road trip movie almost, in a way, road trip through a war torn, area. But if this movie had really dived into that, I would have loved that a lot. The concept of the fact that, like, just before all this happened, there was a country or a territory, whatever, a big country called Yugoslavia, and it had like 7 or 8 little I don't know what republics or provinces or something. I don't know exactly what, but it within it, and they all were like, we're done with this, and they all broke apart with wars. Every single one had a little independence. War of independence, Croatia, Bosnia, and all these ones, they all broke apart. And the Serbs were the largest, what do you call it? Group, the largest population.
Faction.
Well, no, not faction, because they were spread out all over. But they
had, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, they had the largest population within what used to be the country. And then, like, the guy, his partner guy says, we're just Serbs, we're just fighting for our people or something like that. And they're trying to unite all the different Serb little provinces and stuff. But in doing so, they're like committing some pretty bad acts, according to this Wikipedia page. I am only reading it, so in case anybody knows better than me, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm only reading what it says here. But yeah, so it's like, it seems like that's what the part I liked about this movie is that prior to this thing happening, all these people were basically the same. I mean, yes, there's a chunk of Muslims living there too, but they were Bosnians, they were Croatians, they were Serbs as well. You know, they all lived in the same country, and every one of these other countries are basically, I think, either, you know, white Judeo-Christian people or Catholics or something like that. You know, I mean, it's not like every single one of these countries were like ethnically different or anything. There, that husband and wife says, what does she say? She says like, he's a Croat and I'm a something rather. I can't remember what she
Serb.
said.
Yeah.
She says she was a Serb. Yeah. She says she's
one
a
of
Serb,
them is
I'm a Croat.
each.
Yeah. And so, you know, before this conflict broke out, they're all exactly the same. You know, they're just living in different territories. And then this whole giant series of civil wars breaks out, and they're all fighting each other and murdering each other, like at the end, in this horrific ways. And it's like, I actually think it was kind of like a positive that you almost get confused at times if you're not intimately aware of what's going on. It's like, so who are these ones that have captured them now? Why are they trying to kill them? Oh, well, it doesn't, they're all the same. That's the part I thought was so interesting. There's nothing, you know, it's like every war in a way, you know, because we're all the same on this planet. But, you know, like that's like, you know, not to get sentimental or anything, but like that's the part I wish they could have dived deeper into. You know, that they do a great job of touching on it with the couple. But if the whole movie had really focused on that more, I would have given it like an 8.
Yeah, well, and also, well, that's the thing. You need to find the right way to focus on it, and I don't even know what that right way is.
Me neither.
Because
I don't know enough about
like that conflict in Yugoslavia and northern Macedonia and everything like that. It's basically like the European microcosm, not really microcosm. It's almost like a copy and paste of what happened in Somalia at the same time.
I didn't know that.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, like Black Hawk Down and all that stuff happened in the 90s, and I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah. Somalia basically fell apart through, you know, like, you know, there's, okay, Freud got just about everything wrong. The one thing that Freud got right was the narcissism of small differences.
Oh yeah.
And Somalia, you know, basically fell apart through, you know, a bunch of conflicts among clans and so on and so forth, and, you know, a bunch of complex bullshit that we can't get into. And we as Americans look at Somalia and say like, oh, well, you're all just Somalians, why are you fighting? But they look at each other as polar opposites. Same thing happened in that region. And but yeah, I mean, you know, one of my favorite war movies, you know, of the last like 20 years or so is Black Hawk Down. But I mean, that's told entirely from the American perspective. It doesn't deal at all with the actual political or racial or internal conflicts of Somalia. And yeah, I mean, I think that there's an added problem. Well, no, I mean, that's the thing. I think Savior tried to incorporate the actual internal struggle of, you know, this region of the world, but it only did so a little bit, and it tried to do all that through the eyes of an American who has a pretty narrow view of what's going on.
Yeah.
And it might have. It's one of those things where, again, when we talk about writing, we always talk about perspective.
Yeah.
Is it all told through the eyes of one person, or is it all, or is it like God's eye? This is definitely a first-person movie.
Yeah.
It's told through the eyes of this one character and what he's experiencing and how he's going to develop and so on and so forth. It might have been a more interesting and it might have been a more successful movie. It might have been a more successful movie than Black Hawk Down if they had just made it a third-person movie. Like, it just multiple characters, you're getting all these perspectives, and also doing better than Black Hawk Down in terms of actually delving into, like, these are two sides. These are two perspectives. I think that there might have been a really interesting movie about this conflict if they just pulled the lens out a little bit further.
So you're saying that to see the perspective from the other side, as far as like who was in conflict with the Serbs,
and the people on the ground too.
Yeah.
Okay, that votes well for my. I'm trying to find a way into like starting my script about the conflict in the Middle East. I was like, yeah, maybe I got something there. I was like, because I had this idea, like, what if, like, because my whole perspective was from like one side, and I was like, but I can't trash the other side. That's not gonna work. Like, but what if, like, I do a whole Ben-Hur thing where like it's two kids, like from two different sides, and they're neighbors, like they live in neighboring villages, but as they grow up, the conflict ensues and war breaks and they separate to their own parties and they both become, instrumental warriors in their respective sides, and they kind of like their worlds collide. That type of thing, so that you can get the perspective from both sides. Like you demonize and you both sides to some degree, and you also praise both. Like you just exactly like the whole idea that like, I mean, another movie that I thought as you were talking is like Hotel Rwanda, because I recently listened to a podcast. They were kind of breaking down the history of like what happened there with the Hutu and the Tutsis. Like there's like such a messed up situation. There was basically, it was like essentially borderline like a social experiment. Like it was literally the way I think that they were colonized and the way that the colonizers like treated different factions within the society, like literally created the separation between them, and that's where there was like a lot of and unlike in places like say South Africa and other places where like once there was freedom, there's like, okay, let's live and let live, let's forget. They're like, fuck no, now we're in power, we're gonna fuck you up, which is basically what would happen to all Jews in Israel if if the Arabs came to power. But yeah, it's like it's such a messed up thing that like, and I guess that's what the movie is trying to do, but it's just too much. Like this idea, like I don't know, maybe a better filmmaker would have nailed it, but like this idea that this baby symbolizes like not hope, but that like that so many people die in this movie and in this conflict, but that there's a value to human life, that like it's almost like the Schindler's List thing too, like every little bit counts. Like saving this one baby even if all these other people die, like then there's hope that like people will see that, like, and the right person saw this woman who's like somewhere on a bus, like in a big city. Yeah, she's got not as much to do with the conflict, so obviously she's trying to help him out. But this idea that like the baby symbolizes that, like, yes, people will die left and right, but if we don't forget our humanity and we try to save just one life, then we've done a good thing in this world. That type of thing. And I think a movie that does this better is Son of Saul. Like, because
Haven't seen it.
yeah, and we should do our Son of Saul mother double episode. But it's because like it doesn't go too far, because like a baby is a bit, it's too much. It's too much. Like in Son of Saul, he does something to rediscover his humanity that's not as on the nose. It's not as like strong as like saving a baby's life. That's just too symbolically cliched. Like that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. Like that. There's a problem with the device of this movie, the MacGuffin, if you will, the babies that's being saved. That there's some symbolism there is a bit too thick, and maybe like a better filmmaker would have found a way to like make it work better. But maybe not. Maybe it's just not that kind of movie. It really wanted to just like expose the conflict and show it in an entertaining sort of way and shed light on it, but not be a profound movie. Just say, hey, like life sucks, then we should be better to each other, and we're gonna lay it in thick, but we're gonna, at least it's gonna get out there.
I mean, Spielberg sent that message twice in the 90s. About the, to save, well, I mean, it was more explicit in Schindler's List. They actually quoted the Jewish proverb of, he who saves one life saves the world entire. Sorry, but Saving Private Ryan, same basic story.
Yeah, which is why I'm not crazy about neither of those movies. I think it's because there's like it's a bit too on the nose. It's too like the filmmaking is better than the actual point the movie is making. That's the problem with those
incredible,
movies.
Especially
because they're really well done. But the point that comes across, especially in the end, is kind of empty. It's kind of. I'm sorry. I think a better filmmaker would have said like, no, that's too much. 2 steps back. Like it would be a lot more profound if this was not so on the nose. But Spielberg is an on the nose filmmaker. He's not a Scorsese. He's just an on the nose filmmaker. I mean, that's why his best movies are the ones where he's not trying to make a point. That Jaws, I think, is his best movie.
I'm gonna say something really controversial.
Am I a better Jew than you?
I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but it's just the truth. I like Martin Scorsese, but I'm not sure if any moment in any of his films that he's ever made is as powerful as Oscar Schindler, like realizing at the end that he could have saved a couple more by just like getting rid of some of his crap that he had on him. And like after everything he's done, they're all sitting there thanking him, and he's still trying to do more. And he breaks down and falls apart in that last scene. I mean, I don't know if there's anything that Scorsese's ever done that even is on par with that.
This is why we should do a bonus episode about like drafting Scorsese and Spielberg movies, but no, I mean I think it's just a different type of filmmaking and storytelling.
You're right. Think, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, I think to me like Raging Bull would be 1 and Taxi Driver would be 2. I mean,
Raging Bull. Oh, he's literally punching a brick wall. Oh, the symbolism. Wow.
No, not that. It's just coming to the realization that you're an asshole, that you're a horrible human being. I mean, there's something about and wanting to like get redemption. But life doesn't work that way. That like I think there's something to that I feel like with Schindler is like, I was good with the movie, for the most part, pretty much up until that point. Like that's similar to Savior. Like a different director would have said like, no, there's something wrong here. Like this is too much. We gotta do something here. Like, Polanski wouldn't have, if he had made Schindler's List, he would have not had that ending. Like he would have found a way, like, like say like Chinatown, like you're just gonna like throw in something there and just, oh my God, like it's just slapped to the face, but without the one more, this ring and this, come on, you're laying it so thick. Like Taxi Driver, like after the aftermath of the shooting, they scan over the, all the like clippings, the news clippings that he's like, that everybody's like praising him, that he's like this and this, that. The fact that the sociopath was essentially glorified by the community is ridiculous, and that's more profound than anything in any Spielberg movie that's ever been made. I'm sorry, like he's never come even remotely close. Has he made more entertaining movies? No doubt. And I would say Jaws potentially it might be better than Taxi Driver. I think I would still at a top 10 list. Be tough to like, they might be close to each other, but those two movies are as close to perfection as you can get. I think.
If there's one selling point for Savior, it's that we're talking about some of the greatest movies ever made. In of analyzing Savior.
No, that's what I said. Like it was well intentioned. Yeah.
Real quick, because I don't want to steer us away from the movie, but Gil, just because I want to forget, you're talking about inspiration for writing your screenplay that you were working on. You should well, I don't know if you'd have time to get through it because it's long, but there are some Gundam shows, some Japanese anime shows that really like cover the concept that you're trying to deal with. Not the exact concept, obviously, but just warfare, and then what you were talking about, like the two friends on either side, growing up together, but then being stuck on opposite sides and stuff like that. But that's what I would recommend.
But you should send me a link to the names of them. I'll
I
look
would.
them up.
Yeah, it's rough because they're like, each one is probably. I mean, there's like probably 35 different Gundams out there, but the one, most of them are like a full season. So it's like we're talking about on Japanese television. You're talking about like 25-minute episodes, and you're talking about 48 episodes or 50 episodes, something like that. It's like, it's long, but
but I'm sure I'll just get a taste of it, and I need to do also research about the actual, like what happened in real life, because I was going to try and take inspiration from there. So it's complicated. That's why I've procrastinated for many years to even touch it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Starting is one of the hardest parts.
Yeah, that's true. But maybe eventually I'll find the energy.
Yeah.
In any case, was there anything else about?
Just some stupid things I wanted to mention.
Okay.
We talk about like this. We already mentioned how this movie, in other more profound ways, or not profound, but in more instructional or information, more let's just say important ways.
Okay.
This movie, like we said, watching it made me go online and look some stuff up and actually learn some things about this conflict that took place and whatever. In a similar way, I was fascinated by this by the rifle that they show him using throughout the movie, because I was like, I was like, that's the little bipod that he has that he never uses on this thing looks a lot like a Galil. And I was like, but that's not a Galil. What the hell is that thing? And then sure enough, after like a real brief little Google search, I was like, oh, this is the Yugoslavian or the like South African copy or something like that of the Galil, which I found very interesting, because that means that, this concept started as a Russian AK-47, which gets captured in the 6-Day War by the Israelis, gets turned into a better AK-47, the Galil, and then eventually gets taken by another country in Africa somewhere, and I think it was in Africa, but and they eventually tweaked it and did some stuff to it too, which I find very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have it myself.
No, I was just thinking, like, so the movie either had like hyper focused attention to detail there, or they just found whatever gun looked the best for that region or whatever.
If you want the answer to that,
okay.
The IMFDB says that he's using the gun is called a Vector R4. It's a modified design of like I said, the Galil we talked about. Says the weapon would be accurate for the Bosnian Serb military, which did purchase a few thousand of them during that conflict. However, so here's the part where you're right, where your guess was correct and incorrect. So it is extremely not likely, but accurate that a weapon like that would have been used in this conflict. However, they're saying that since the movie starts out with him fighting in that French Foreign Legion, and they show him training before he even goes into battle with that exact same rifle. He said that you would never find that gun in any French Foreign Legion. So in other words, what it means is they did their research. They said this would be a good gun that'll work for all these scenes for 90% of the movie. And then rather than finding some random rifle for him to use in that very first training scene, they were just like, here, use the same one. Because in that first scene, it wouldn't have been very likely, but then for the rest of the movie, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
The things you can learn.
I like the touch about the whole tying the barrel of the gun to wherever he is.
I bet you that would be more stable than using that little bipod.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting touch. Mm-hmm. I like when movies have something like that where you see like he's got like a thing that you don't often see in movies. So it's
or like him using the condom instead of the bottle nipple.
Yeah, the whole condom thing. Yeah, that's.
I
just the other day I was like telling I was telling Dan, I was like, I don't know what it was, but she was like prepping bottles and stuff because we were gonna start feeding the baby, and I was like, oh, worst case, let's use a condom.
God, I hope it doesn't have any lubricant on it. That's disgusting.
Exactly. I was thinking like that doesn't work. You have to wash it and stuff because it's got lubricant. But I think it's not dangerous. Maybe for a baby it is, but technically, because women give blowjobs with a condom.
I'm sure it's not dangerous.
You can get condoms with flavors on them too. So
Yeah, I think it's edible. Much like anything that's related to sex, it tends to be edible.
So the other thing I wanted to mention, I cannot get over how much I love Goran's car. This movie features a Yugo, a 1990 Yugo convertible that has been transformed into a military vehicle in the cheapest way possible. This thing is so awesome. It is one of the tiniest, stupidest little cars ever made, but they say that they run forever. At least I've never driven one, but that's what they say about them. And this thing has like a makeshift bull bar on the front and some like little KC lights and stuff. And they got a roll cage with some more KC lights up on the top. They've got like a little gas can on the back where the tailgate is. And it's like, they have like turned this little tiny thing into a serious military vehicle. And I love it. I can't get over it.
Yeah, I was watching it and I was thinking like, oh, that makes sense. They went with like a convertible because then you don't have to worry about like glass glares and things like that from the window. But yeah, it was like a lot of funny cars. Like also the car that the dad and the brother could like drive with. just like not fancy cars there. It's all like just tiny compact things that are about to fall apart any minute.
Well, I know that the Serbian or the Yugo is a Serbian car. I'm not sure what the I really have no clue what the father and brother were driving.
No, it is funny, all those tiny European cars.
Yeah.
In an area where there's not a lot of like small narrow streets like to warrant those types of vehicles.
Yeah.
But they're probably just very fuel efficient, if nothing else.
I'm sure.
It was really funny. This is a huge digression, sorry, but my first year in DC, I met the economist Russ Sobel, and he gave this presentation about like Eastern Europe and like a lot of the poorer countries, and okay, economically, is it a problem with people not being innovative, or is it a problem with like policy? And he shows this image of like one of those really small cars, and somebody had managed to fit a cow in the back of the car. And he's just like, these people aren't poor because they can't innovate. These people are poor because of the policies. I mean, that takes some creativity.
You gotta make it work.
Yeah. So,
that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's good to point out that not that it matters too much, but babies are not supposed to drink milk. It's like dangerous for them. Like, I don't think they had formula there. I think they gave him like actual milk until the mom finally breastfed. But
yeah.
But it's
what would you do if you had no other option? I mean, like, what would you give it? Because I mean, it probably isn't going to eat baby food, right?
Yeah, like if you had no other option, there's just like several diseases that they can contract from milk. That's why, which is why there's formula and breast milk. Yeah, because like cow's milk for like under age 1, basically. Like that, yeah. Like there's a few things like I don't know if at age 1 or 6 months, but something like where they can't. Just like there's too many certain bacterias and stuff in it that like are just problematic for babies. If I'm not mistaken, I should check with Diana. But also honey, strangely, you can't have it before you're 1. Just certain things like they have like certain minerals and certain like ingredients in them that just like don't sit well with babies.
Well, I mean, yeah, I almost choke on honey anytime I try to digest it, and I'm almost 39.
Yeah, there's that.
What's wrong with you eating honey?
Because I fucking hate honey.
What?
The funny thing is, like, ironically, it's good for the throat. That's what people have when they have a cough.
I'm so confused.
Well, the next time I have a girlfriend, I'll make sure to give her a lot of honey. But
don't make sure not to.
Wow.
Don't mix it with what's the one that makes people choke? Is the cinnamon. People
oh my god!
Try to they have the challenge, the cinnamon challenge, to try to eat a spoonful of cinnamon.
Have you guys ever tried it? I tried it.
I haven't tried it.
It's amusing to watch someone do it. Well, let me rephrase that. It's amusing to watch somebody try.
Yeah. Anyways.
All right.
But yeah, no, it's but yeah, because of course, like, you have to do what you have to do. But it is a good point when you think about it. Like you can't really feed a baby. The only other option, if you don't have a nipple, is they can suck on things. Like if you soak like a paper towel or just a towel, if you soak it with the milk, you can give the baby the towel to suck on. But technically, a baby, you can't like dab liquids into. They don't know how to drink. That is an interesting problem when you think about it. So yeah, there's like a few fun touches in this movie, but I think there was like one thing. One last thing I would say about it is that like I knew what it was going. Like he was going to rediscover his humanity by trying to help this, like, but the one thing is I didn't know what happened is that the mom would die. The fact that like, yeah, that she essentially
balls
like sacrifices her life and stuff like that. That was like, okay, that's something. Like they went there. Like they really went there. Like I actually would have bought it if like Dennis Quaid would have died and she would have survived. So the fact that they went there, where like the mom is like, saving the baby with her life is like, that's something, that was admirable.
It's actually kind of funny that we talked about this entire movie without mentioning that Dennis Quaid like walked into a mosque and murdered a bunch of people at the beginning.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that none of us accidentally said it at the beginning before the spoilers, because like that's the thing that like caught my attention when I saw this movie.
Yeah,
like,
you know what? I take it back. For
balls.
That scene alone, Islamophobia. I feel like it's warranted.
Well, no, because like a movie depicts Islamophobia, but he's
right.
not racist in the end.
Right? It's
no, yeah,
supposed
he's not
to be
motivated.
his redemption.
Yeah, he's not motivated by racism. I mean, he saves a half Muslim baby.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something about, but it makes the point that like people in those moments, like when you lose someone that's close to you because of the actions of someone else, like, yeah, all you see is hate. And it's just, and it's just depressing. It's really depressing. It's
side note, completely off that topic, but so Matt, I just want to throw this out there. When I saw this movie this time, at the very end, when he can't do anything to save the girl and she's out there and they have this like executioner just like mollywopping people. I thought for a second that was Patrick. I thought it was Patrick Gallagher for a second. And I was like, what are the chances? There's no way. And so I looked it up and I was like, okay, good. It wasn't him. Some random Serbian actor. Okay, all
right. Yeah, what was that term that you used, Molly?
You've never, dude. You got to be careful when someone comes at you. You don't want to get mollywopped.
Mollywopped.
That is way too cute of a term for what was happening.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I should ask you this. Like, is there like a thing in the U.S. where like this game, apparently for kids, because my kids in preschool apparently do this, is they have this game called 7-Up, where like everybody like lowers their head and somebody taps them. You have to guess.
Heads down,
7-Up. Heads down, 7-Up. Yeah, so I told my kids like, oh yeah, like in Israel we have the equivalent of that. Only you don't tap, like you smack someone really, really fucking hard, and it's so
I want to
painful.
Play that so much better. Oh my god.
Yeah, like it's so painful. Like the shock and the pain is just like so infuriating. But you have to focus and you have to like see who did it. But like,
I have never heard of this thing. I guess I was really unpopular.
Because there's a thing about like somebody smacks you in the back of your head, of your like neck, and if you're not allowed to cover yourself, it is really painful. It's painful to the point of like it's like those slapping competitions. It's like really. Like it rings in your ears, like it's really painful. But kids are so stupid.
Much better than the American version. Oh man,
it is. I think I've played it once. I was never like a daredevil as a kid. I felt like this is just really stupid. Like somebody can really hurt themselves.
The game is a little children's game.
I was never invited.
No, this was not. This was not that kind of thing. This was like a game you'd play in your classroom.
Okay.
On rainy days when you couldn't go outside.
It sounds like a dark version of Duck Duck Goose.
It is kind of, only it's so stupid. And yet for some reason as a kid, I have nothing but positive memories of this game. But it was like you're all in your class in your desks. in class, and everyone has to put their head down, and the teacher just watches to make sure to keep it honest, and nobody can peek. You have to bury your head in your arms, and you just put one of your hands up with your thumb up, like you're hitchhiking, basically. And the person comes by, they touch your thumb, causing you to put it down. And then when everyone's done that, like 7 people have done that, they go up to the front of the class, and the remaining, let's face it, this is American public school, so the remaining 32 students in the classroom have to then watch as the 7 people who were chosen try to guess which person chose them. So it's kind of like you're staring at them and you're trying to read their eyes, read their faces, and so on and so forth.
Like a poker face.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why. I cannot tell you why, but in like 2nd, 3rd grade, I was good at this game. When people chose me, I could tell who it was. I could tell from the way they flicked my thumb, the way they touched my thumb. I could tell if it was one of my friends who just like smacked my thumb, or if it was some person who I barely ever spoke to, who's trying to like pick someone that they didn't think would choose them, would guess that was them, and they just lightly touched I could do it. I was good at this game. And that's the whole gist of the game. It's so stupid. If you guess correctly, you become one of the people to select, and you go up to the front. For some reason, that's a coveted position. I don't know why. It's stupid. But as dumb as this game is, now I'm so sad I didn't grow up in Israel, because that sounds so much better, Gil. Where you can just smack someone in the back of the head. I love that idea. That makes the game so much better.